So, this happened yesterday. If you want 5% off any single or sealed product, head over to tier0games.com and use code GALZO5 at checkout. So by now you've all seen this spectacular ban list, and it has a lot of different effects throughout the metagame currently in Yu-Gi-Oh! But before we begin, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe if you're new as always, and what I wanted to discuss today with you guys is what does branded look like after this massive ban list? The ban list obviously did a big dent to tier limits. It also sort of killed Fluenderies. It's something that you less have to worry about. The deck is probably still going to be played to some capacity, but not with Barrier Statue, which is the most hurtful thing to branded. The big thing here, I think, is the Shufflers. The Shufflers are probably the most powerful tier cards that have been in circulation. Of course, the names got limited, which lowers the consistency by a whole bunch, and the Millers, of course, that weren't all that bad for branded to begin with. But the Shufflers being out of the game is, I think, the big deal here, and that means a lot of other strategies can come back into play, and that's why this video is sort of like an asterisk on it, with the fact that the format is going to be wide open. We are at day one after this ban list. It's not even in effect. Photon Hypernova is not even out. We have 3 YCSs down the line, and we don't know what's happening. But I wanted to prepare you guys for what could possibly branded look like after this ban list. So I'm definitely not going to sit here and tell you I've solved the format. I know what branded looks like after the ban list. We're only like a day after, less than a day after the ban list was actually released. And I think that branded Despia Bystial is well positioned to be one of the strongest decks. It's going around Twitter right now that branded was just like not hit at all, and it was one of the best decks before Power of the Elements. So this means that branded can come back full power, and it also has a lot of new powerful support in Photon Hypernova. So I'm not gonna sit here tell you I've solved the format, but I am gonna tell you that branded is in a really good place to be a winner of this ban list, definitely. So I do want to show you 3 different deck lists that I've made, and also talk about a few things within those decks that are going to change or are going to have different effects because of the ban list. So the deck list I'm going to show today are not finalized. You don't have to go all over me in the comments saying that this is bad, this is this. These are just templates from the 3 different approaches that I feel could be viable right now. And before I talk about the variants, I do want to talk about 3 different things that are existent in branded, and to note a few important things about them. So the first one is going to be the Bystials. I think that the Bystials are in a weird place right now. Overall, since tier has only 3 targets that you can hit to fusion summon, they are probably less effective. Probably, and I say that with everything I say here is with a grain of salt, because we don't know. I mean, I don't think tier elements is completely dead, to be honest. So the Bystials are in a weird place, but it could be replaced with, other targets. If people start playing, for example, Drytron, Bystials are very good against that as well. But I think the Bystials in general are 1, an engine piece to branded, and 2, they are very strong cards in and of itself. Druid's Worm is amazing, Serenir in branded is absolutely broken, and Lubellion is such a great card because it gets you to the cards that bring you the most utility out of the deck. The other thing that I want to talk about is actually fusion deployment. I've been kind of bullish on fusion deployment since, we started theorizing what the deck will look like, but I think now that tier elements are maybe out of the game and other decks are going to appear, specifically Kashtira, above all of them, Ash Blossom and Joy Spring is actually going to get played more. And Ash Blossom, as we know, hurts this deck immensely. And I think that fusion deployment makes sure that you will resolve the combo as you need to and as you intend to. That means getting a Cartesia on the field. So if you do play a lower Bystial count because tier elements is not longer a competitor, then fusion deployment becomes essential for you to get the Cartesia that you would otherwise get from, activating a Bystial on Mercurier. So I think fusion deployment is kind of strong at that. And I think that the importance of Mercurier and branded loss specifically is heightened by a lot in this format, because we are going to see, and you do have this in my main deck as well, we're going to see Nibiru, and this deck does lose somewhat to Nibiru. It's not, a death sentence by any means, but you will get hit with a Nibiru if your opponent has it. So getting to that branded lost early, which gets you to a Mercurier early, actually prevents you from getting hit with Nibiru, and that's why Lubellion is so important. So it all kind of ties back together, one thing to another, that Lubellion can grab you Lost from the deck, and Lost can get you Mercurier, and then you can just go by your combo uninterrupted. Even if they have an Nibiru, you're protected. So I think these three pieces are actually really important to think about during the next format and when you're testing and building for the next format. And the first build is sort of like a consistency Nibiru strategy. Basically, Nibiru is very good in this deck because 1, it's Nibiru, 2, it's a light monster that you can use, and you can use this for Cartesia, you can use this for Albaz, you can use it with Branded Fusion, stuff like that. It's not necessarily a brick ever, and I think with Allure of Darkness and Fusion Deployment, this is like I would say the consistency build. This is like the most vanilla approach that sort of like does it 100% gas, as Despia did before Power of the Elements. Before Power of the Elements, Despia didn't play hand traps. This was an all gas deck. It had Patchwork and stuff like that we're going to talk about in a second. And this is sort of like a take on that, which is my first approach. My second approach is actually the Patchwork Engine that I mentioned before. So this approach is an approach that I personally took to Nationals when I topped the event with this deck. It wasn't that different, there weren't any Bystials there, but Edgemp Chain and the Poly package gives you a lot of advantage and extension through things like hand traps and Ash Blossom specifically. So this is why this build has Theater Branded, and it also has this Patchwork Engine, and of course Branded in white that can extend a fusion even further, and Cartesia, and of course 2 fusion deployment to get to that Cartesia. So I think this one is more, I would say, a conservative build in light of Ash Blossom seeing more play in the format, or hand traps in general, because this deck was around with a lot of hand traps and still performed well on an all gas build. So I think this could be definitely the second approach. And if we are talking about hand traps, this is like my personal copium, but think about the last time you saw Crossout Designator being played competitively in a tournament environment on a feature match in a YCS. Think about that pretty hard. Yeah, you got it. It was in Branded. This is one of the only decks that we saw that actually ran this card successfully, because 1, Ash Blossom hurts the deck in a very hard way, and yeah, this is what you need to run your combo successfully. And if people are playing things like Nibiru and Bystials and Ash Blossom and Valor, and of course Imperm, stuff like that, all of these are pretty generic to any deck. Maybe Crossout is not such a bad option for this deck. Crossout can actually benefit a lot from Branded Regain, so Crossout doesn't become a -1 anymore from your hand. It actually becomes sort of like a neutral card. So I think this is my personal copium, because I have my issues with Crossout Designator, but I think that even though it didn't see any play, this could be one of the only decks that can run it successfully. And if you're looking to the past, which decks actually ran this card successfully, it was almost only Despia in the higher tables in a YCS. So I think in terms of like general approaches to building the deck, these are probably going to be it. But I do also want to mention some honorable mentions in these 3 examples of some cards that you can think about. Tearlaments, Shaddoll, and Predaplant. These are all going to be variants that exist. I'm already seeing lists that, of course, doing Predaplant branded, but also some Tearlament Shaddoll builds and maybe Despia Shaddoll Tearlaments builds. This could be viable. I mean, this works. On paper, it definitely works, and it sort of like depends on how the meta evolves and shifts. And these are cards you might want to keep in mind and maybe pick up, as long as they're very, very cheap right now, to build your branded strategy and to be ready for, any feature match that you suddenly see something really, really cool and you want to start building them up. take everything I said with a grain of salt, but I think that these are going to be the three main approaches people are going to take. In addition to Tier Limits, Shadol, and Predaplan that are also really good engine to splash branded into. I think this format is going to be super exciting. It's a really good day to be a branded player. I'm saying this always because it's always a good day, but today is definitely a good day because one of the biggest, strongest strategies got hit, like annihilated, and you know, shufflers killed this deck and they gave a very hard time to this deck, and now they're at 1, so good luck to everybody else, and branded wasn't hit even to the slightest, so it's a natural competitor, and I'm really excited to see what this format brings. So thank you so much for watching, hope you enjoy my takes. Leave a comment down below on what you think about the next format, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to support further, join as a member, click the join button to learn more. I'll see you in the next one, peace.